Hello to everybody watching at Sound Roots Connect. I'm David Weir. I'm the Marketing and Communications Officer at Sound Roots. And today I'm here with Terry O'Brien, the founder of Sound Roots, and Michael Ainsworth, owner of the Grayston Unity and Meandering Bear. And they're going to have a short interview all about the work that Michael does. So I'll hand over to them.
Lovely. Thanks, David. Hi, Michael. It is
Hi.
really nice to meet you. We've worked on a few shows together over the
Yeah.
last couple of years, but haven't actually managed to meet face to face yet. So it's really nice to see you.
Yeah. And you?
Um, cool. Now, we wanted to do this because you are doing some really interesting things there that I've not really seen other promoters and venues do. So I'd really like to get to the bottom of it and let people know the ins and outs of what you're doing. But before we start, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you grew up, how you got interested in music?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief. Yeah, so we're based in Halifax, West Yorkshire. That's pretty much where I spent most of my life, which all my life really. I put on my first gig. I was just turned 17 back in 1984. Yeah, so I've been doing it kind of a long time. And I did a lot of stuff in the 80s, in amongst, not as a job, but just in and amongst. A lot of political stuff, a lot of things like anti-apartheid and benefits and miners' strike and all that kind of stuff. And then kind of run various club nights with live bands and stuff for a number of years in and around Halifax, up until I suppose early 90s, I suppose, really. And then had a bit of break, and then kind of came back into it um, around about 2005. And then I kind of ran as a kind of like a not-for-profit kind of promoting agency, if you like, in the town, Halifax, for about 10, 15 years going on for, really, I suppose.
So were
Uh,
you full time back then, Michael, or were you sort of
yeah,
juggling between jobs?
I had a proper job, as that's what I refer to it. Yeah, so I kind of, yeah, so I did it in amongst. So we had a lot of, I don't know, I mean, in terms of folk world, I suppose the obvious biggest name was probably something like the Umfanks or something like that at Halifax Minster, where we've worked on stuff since. So I did lots of stuff, managed bands, yeah, all the kind of stuff that you kind of do. And then in the meantime, I did have a kind of proper job and a career, I suppose you would call it that. I was in education, mainly in marketing, in university and colleges, but also by the time I kind of towards the end, head of student services, head of safeguarding, da, 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 da. And
Well, the marketing must have been a good background for you for
yeah,
this.
yeah. I've always kind of that's that and events stuff. It's always what I've kind of done, really, I suppose. But then 2016, yeah, because we're just coming up to our ninth birthday this Saturday. I jacked it all in. It made no sense really, and it has subsequently made no financial sense, or stability sense, or all of that really. But I jacked it all in to open what you probably call a micro bar. I tried a few times over the previous sort of 10 years to open a bar and venue and in the town, and it just kept falling through, often at the very last minute, and I just like giving up on it, if I'm being honest. And then, of all places, went for a weekend away in Berwick-upon-Tweed, which is a good, lovely little place, and went for a beer in a tiny bar, and I thought, oh, if they can make some kind of a life out of this tiny bar, then perhaps I could, and if I could find somewhere. And anyway, within 2 days, I'd seen somewhere back home, put an offer in, and got it. And it was a tiny place, to the extent where my wife, who's been incredibly supportive of me all along with this, because I wouldn't have been that if she and back into kind of do all this sort of stuff. It never have happened really. We got this bar. It was a two-room bar, tiny, in an old 1850s listed building that had been derelict for a long time. And I always remember having the conversation, saying, it's just too small to put live music on. And my wife just looked at me and said, I won't say exactly what she said, but it was on the lines of what you're on about. You'd have something on in no time. And sure enough, we'd kind of within a month started putting something in this tiny back room, which it had a capacity of, well, if you were just about 18.
Fantastic.
But if a band turned up with a drum kit, which occasionally did, the capacity is shrunk to about 5, which is people sat on the sofa and 2 either side. But despite all that, we managed to do some amazing stuff. Michael Chapman, he played in it, and Nadine Shah came along, a band called The Burning Hell, who are still around now, and Carmel, who was from the 80s, came and did a little set, and Philip Selway from Radiohead. So despite all of this amazing stuff, they all kind of came, and it was kind of all on a little bit. We kind of got very lucky in the sense that we joined Independent Venue Week, and Sybil, who's turned out to be very, very supportive of what we do, Sybil Bell, who's the founder of it, kind of got in touch and said, we're just checking something because you've applied to be part of Independent Venue Week. And we said, yeah, that's great. I said, well, I think you made a mistake on your form because you put down 18 as your capacity. I presume you mean 180. I said, no, it's 18. And she subsequently told me when this form came into the office, she said, God, there's some idiot up in Yorkshire who just filmed the form and saying he's only got 18 in the room. But it is 18. And that kind of led us to be called got the title of the UK's smallest music venue, which we, absolutely maxed from PR purposes. And we got Six Music came and did a live interview and a bit of a program with Elizabeth Alker from it, and it generated lots of interest from it, and we've kind of used it, but then it's just obviously very difficult to make an 18 capacity venue work.
Absolutely. So what was the pub called?
Well, it's called Grayston Unity. It's the same name.
It's the same name.
Right. Yeah, it was named after my memory of my mum's family, mum and her family. And then the idea of just unity of a place where everyone could come together. And it was at a time when, well, let's face it, the country's very divisive now, but it was the start of it being very divisive around Brexit.
But it's quite an unusual name. It almost sounds like a union,
Yeah. It is a very distinct name. You say Grayson's it's family name on my mum's side, and Unity just came to work, and it seems to sums up really well.
So you've moved on, presumably, from that tiny little venue.
Yeah, we kind of, what happened, to be honest, we got to a time of just before COVID broke, and our time COVID. I mean, it was difficult to make it work. The dynamics of the town centre had changed, and we suddenly found ourselves, we were the only place in this one area of town, and everything had moved. So it was difficult. But then the COVID broke, and we applied for Cultural Recovery Fund money, and I'll be honest, didn't really think I'd get it. But I think on the back of all the decades of me doing stuff in the town, I suppose I'm not. Naturally, I'm quite well known because of all that and what I do, and I've got a good name for what I do, and etc. So I think that kind of helped. I got the chief executive council support the application and a few others and stuff. Anyway, I put in for it, and amazingly we got it, and that was it. That was, in the sense, that was the absolute. I mean, it's terrible as obviously as COVID was, and I'm not saying it wasn't, but actually it was COVID that saved us, ironically, because we won that money, and then we got applied again and got another set of money through, and that initially enabled us to do a little bit of some work on the structure of the building, which took us up to a massive 50 capacity. But then what we found was that we'd sell out 50 capacities really quite easily, or and again punched way above our weight to get some of the people played. And I suppose it gave me the confidence and some money in the bank as a result of the funding, etc. To think, well, perhaps we could make a go of this somewhere else. So a year and a half, well, no, it's probably two, it'd be over two, I don't know, I lost track of time, but it'd be a good 2 years ago now, a bit longer. We found somewhere, it was a complete shell of a building. But the difference was, having done now what I've done for all this time, we've never I've never really been wanted by anybody to do anything particularly. So it's not, music venues are not particularly massively popular, are they, in town centres? But there's a property owner developer in the town centre who actually wanted us to be part of, even though it's just another building in a way for them to rent out, but he wanted it, to be part of their portfolio businesses and what have you.
We shouldn't gloss over that, because actually that's quite a big important point, that a lot of people think that they don't want music venues because they're noisy and people turn out at the wrong time of night. But actually there's an incredibly strong argument in favor of entertainment venues in the middle of cities for economic recovery.
Yeah, I'd agree. And certainly, I mean, since we kind of moved into where we are, we've been joined by a restaurant down across, 2 doors down, and there's a hotel reopening opposite us, and there's this sort of stuff. So it absolutely does. I totally. I mean, in terms of Halifax, it's culture that's revived the town. I'm not saying that us, we're contributing in a tiny way, but through there's something called the Peace Hall, which has loads of summer outdoor gigs. There's other things to do with culture and arts, and that's what's kind of given the I'm not going to say it's still an amazing, it's still not got problems of the town. It has, but it's culture and music that's actually helped give it some life and keeping it going and actually helping it grow and bring people in. And so I'm a total advocate, and that you should never, underestimate the value of importance of music and culture in doing that. And and going back to this building we moved into, when we took it, it was an absolute. It wasn't even a shell really, because there was only part of it was built. It had to be extended out. It had to be dug down into the next door's building to get access into a basement so it could turn into the venue room. We couldn't get upstairs. There was no way of getting upstairs, so they had to, and we put, don't get me wrong, we put some money in, but we didn't have the money to do it, and it cost of the property developer, a lot of cash to make it happen. But I say they wanted us in there, and which is also a nice feeling to be wanted. And that's kind of given us the confidence. It gave us confidence to go for it and do it. And so we're coming up to, well, it's 9 years this Saturday that we've been going, and a year coming up to, well, 2 years in October in our new place, which, I'm not going to say it's easy. It isn't. You can't take your eye off the ball for a moment. But we're here. We've survived. We've kind of, we're going to turn a little profit this year, which I think is something really.
It's always good. It's always good. And you even expanded, didn't you? I mean, you've got another venue as well.
Well, we've got that. I mean, we have a second bar around, but really it's a bar that does. It's not a venue. It's a bar that does. We have like pretty much weekly jazz afternoon, but it's not that opened with terrible timing 3 months before COVID broke. So but again, we've survived. It's growing. It's kind of, it's still there. It's not easy, but we've kind of, we've done it. But at the end of the day, what I'm doing with the Grayston is it's very much kind of what I'm about, and we're very, I don't know, very strongly independent, ruffle a few feathers, that kind of stuff. And
never hurts to ruffle a few feathers. We're very rock and roll in that way, aren't we? And definitely should be. So So it sounds like you're sort of very influenced by, the things that have happened in the local area around you, like the miners' strike and all of that kind of activism that has gone on around that in the area. And I actually lived up there during all of that time, so I know what it was like. So do you see that as a big influence for you?
Well, we don't hide away from the fact that we're left leaning, and then sometimes I probably, sometimes I think I probably should just stay shut, mouth shut, and not get engaged in some things, and just. But I don't know. I kind of think that if you're principled and you agree in something, then why shouldn't have a business? Why shouldn't a business sometimes have be able to say these things? Really, I don't. I know we probably don't have customers come in because they think we're all hotbed of lefties and stuff. But
There's nothing wrong with that, Michael. Hot better lefties every time. So it's coming out in some great ways, and one of the ways is that you're very supportive of local artists, and you've even got a fund to help local artists. Can you tell us about that?
yeah, well, I mean, it's come back because really we're. I think because I mean, I'm coming up to a significant birthday in a couple of years, and I've been doing it for such a long time, and I'm really mindful of the fact that I can't and won't be able to do it forever, and and I've in all the years I've done stuff, and I've stopped doing something. I used to think, well, I'll stop promoting gigs for a while, and somebody else will come along and start doing stuff. And nobody ever has. Nobody really, a bit of sporadicness, sometimes short periods people have, but not sustained really. And so I've always been mindful of that. So when we got the new place, I thought, right, what can we do to encourage young people and to get into music and young artists to get into music and or get into the music business. So it's been a really deliberate and approach. And we've kind of how it manifested itself in a few ways. Really, we took on last the year last January. We took on a full-time apprentice who was 17 at the time, who was interested in, she wanted to get into the music industry in some way. I didn't really know how. She was she's a bright girl, dropped out of a very good school because she was struggling because they weren't teaching, it wasn't, etc. And we took her on as an apprentice to do digital content, and so we worked with her for a year. She's absolutely superb. I mean, and she's developed. It's been in lots of ways. So now she does artist interviews. She produces online content. All sorts of stuff. Start giving her a go at doing some programming. She's she's interviewed from like Nile Rodgers through to all sorts of people. Whereas we got a day a week at In-House Press and Melodic in Manchester. It's in-house, the biggest music PR business outside London. So she's doing that for a day a week to get to broaden her experience.
Wow, that must be so gratifying. I mean, what an amazing thing to do for a young person.
Yeah, I don't really think. I think she genuinely does appreciate it. We don't, and if I kind of think, oh, we should have had that chance, I mean, we sent her down to the Music Venue Trust annual report launch at Parliament. She represented us there with my venue manager, who's the ripe old age of 22. So it's kind of like they represented us. My wife and I had total confidence in them, and she went around Parliament and
I mean, and credit to her as well, because not
yeah.
all young people would grab that opportunity
No,
by the throat with them.
But we've also done other stuff, and we have interns. So Tom, my sound engineer, so he's only 22, who's he's just so good, and has subsequently does bits of sound engineering work in amongst also for the Leeds Grand and City Varieties and places. But it's ultimately our full-time manager. But he's taken and he's totally with it as well. So he's trained up interns himself. So we've got he's probably about 3 he's had in the time, including Iris, who's because there are very very few female sound engineers. So she's just done her very first show on her own. having spent time with learning skills under Tom, and she's just gone 18. So we do all that. We've got a intern learning the promoting business side of running a venue. Managed to get some little bit of funding at the council for a couple of those posts, and then we still pay because I complete believe everybody should always get paid something for whatever they do, playing, working, whatever. I hate this kind of into this attitude where bands can play and they don't get paid or whatever. It's crazy. So we do all of that, and then I suppose what else? I mean, then they probably the ultimate thing which I've done, which is I still think, no, well, I've gone past thinking, what was I thinking doing this? Because it's actually been all right. Is that there's a young band who were all sort of 19, 20, 21 from the borough, and we knew them, and they played for us, and they done a recording, and they sent me it to listen to, and I listened to it. I thought, wow. So what what you doing with what you going to do with it now then? So just thought we'd try and get on Spotify in the next month. I said, thought that doesn't seem all that it come and gone in an instant. So I thought, what can I do? So I thought, right. So I've set up a record label, just really just.
Of course you did.
Just to work with them this year, and then the deal, the contract is for a year, and then we'll see beyond that. So we've done one vinyl single, to second online digital single has just come out, and then we're going to finish it up with a 6-track mini album at Twitchwood at the beginning of November. So it's all recorded. So. And really, it's a vehicle. Really, it might not happen, and the whole purpose of it. It's not if I actually losing money on it, or even if I sell it all out, I think I'll still lose money on it. But the purpose of it really was to put something back in and to try and help them further on in their career and try and get a career, because it's a long haul and it's chances obviously are still very slim. But that's the purpose of it. We managed to we got lucky right at the beginning and got an airplay on the Six Music daytime for the single, and we picked up bits of stuff before. But it's a really, I'm the old giffer in the corner who's sort of like funding it and trying to organise it a little bit. But Neve, my apprentice, is working on PR for them, in addition to doing the stuff she does for me, and Tom's doing some gig booking for them on top of it. So it's it's a really it feels like a great thing to do.
So you're helping young people on the artist side, you're helping young people on the industry side, and as a venue you're doing this. I mean, is it an approach that you're sort of helping other venues to take on?
Well, I think I like to think we've inspired other venues in the borough. I think they would acknowledge that, and so yeah. We are kind of looking at in terms of our area. We have the Trades Club, which everyone's heard of, but then there's a few others. There's a place called the Golden Lion in Tomodon, which is quite amazing in what they do, and then there's a place called the Puzzle Hall Inn, which has been around forever, and one or two others, and we all, I think that all have done bits with the young people in the past, but I think there's been a concerted perhaps approach and effort to realise that this is what we should all be doing, and actually because if we don't, because you want to do it, but also if you're looking at it hard-headedly from a business point of view, if we don't get young people engaged with music in the audiences and going to gigs and performing, then it's not going to have much of a future in years to come. Because the costs of it's very getting harder and harder for working class artists and young bands to play and perform because of the costs involved. So I think they're all I think we've all embraced the art in the last 12, 18 months, and I do like to think we've been a bit of a catalyst for getting for for shining a light on it, if nothing else, and but perhaps a bit more than that at times.
And
So
you've also got a fund that you do
yeah,
for artists. Tell us about that.
we got a pot called Future Roots. So we take a ticket levy. I mean, I could tell you right stories about ticket levies but I might have to think if I can say that without let me think about it in a moment. But we have a ticket levy. We write our own ticket levy, which is partly so that if young artists want to tap into it, they can do. So if they want to, I don't know, if they get a gig in Manchester and they can't afford a van hire or whatever, then they can come to us and say, "We got 20 quid for petrol," that kind of thing. But also use it towards a record label, and also using it to just for essential equipment things that we need for the venue, because as I say, it's there's a complete lack of understanding from the Norma drones where they're charging huge amounts for tickets and stuff, and they don't realise that if your amp blows and you have to get a new amp and you have to spend 800 quid on a repair, we have to sell basically 2 grand's worth of beer just to be able to pay for the repair, which is crazy, and it's no future. I mean, I don't think that it's a different conversation, but I think the long-term model of how small venues are kind of funded and run, as it doesn't have much a long-term future, because it's too. What I mean, I say this regularly, but what other art form do you? I mean, you never go to a theatre or see an opera or see some dance and think, oh, I hope they keep going. I hope they've sold enough beer at the bar to pay for that, performance of Swan Lake. It doesn't happen, does it? But venues have to rely on bar sales, and given that bar sales and beer consumption, etc., is going down, and young people are going out as much, all of that. If the whole issue of engaging young people into getting into stuff doesn't get addressed, then the long-term prognosis for venues isn't good, and I'm constantly banging on to it. Anybody who can be bothered listening to me.
Well, I was going to ask you about the sort of challenges of being a grassroots venue, because obviously it's been in the news a lot. Music Venues Trust are doing a great job in sort of raising awareness of how important the small venues where bands start, where music fans learn to be music fans, and to create this sort of love of music that goes through their entire life. It all starts in grassroots venues. But what you're saying, and what obviously Music Venues Trust has said for a long time, is that the realities are really difficult, and that basically very few people are in a grassroots venue because they want to make money. They're doing it for the love of it, but they're really struggling financially.
Yeah, it's just ridiculously tight. We've had some, yeah. If I look back over a year and a half, when you get a show that sells out within about 2 or 3 days, it's amazing, because but often not. Every week we have a sit down with Tom and Neve. We have a spreadsheet, and we have red, green, amber, and there's very rarely a green. There's a few ambers and then a few reds, and we can't really afford to take many hits. We had a show on Saturday, Deep Dark Woods from Canada, and that was a financial mess, because we sold probably about 20 tickets and the break-even figure was about 50. So we find ourselves, it meant we have to try and be more careful about who we can program now, so it limits the range of stuff we're putting on. You can't take your eye off the ball at all, and it's challenging. I mean, one of the kind of probably the biggest, well, not one of the biggest, but one of the challenges in that is actually working with agents. I'll be honest, I'm in that regard, and I'm not just saying it because you're here, but when we had slight concerns over when the shows in the past, your response was like a I've never heard from an agent ever. You know, whereas most agents still want, no matter how things are, even though there's no dropping down, you know, on fees or anything like that. I can't name them, but if an agent of a folk jewelry recently put on, there was just no movement, even though for months and months and months and months we've been saying it's not selling. It's not selling. We've never worked so hard on one show, and it's still not
Oh.
selling. And yet there was no, can anything be done? There was no movement on it, and yet, all that's done is we're not going to use that agent again.
Yeah, I mean, we are an ecosystem and we need you, as speaking as an agent, as well as somebody who works for Sound Roots, we need you as agents as much as you need us to deliver the right artists to you. Agents are the filter trying to sort of, find the best talent to and guide it towards a career and make sure that everything's in place to make that happen. But, if they haven't got anywhere to play, they're not going to have a career.
No, no, exactly. So yeah, so that's always, and because there's like discussions obviously at the moment around, generated from the good work that Venue Trust do and Independent Venue Week, but around venues and grassroots venues and the disparity between the huge arenas, etc. But if so, they're aware of it, and yet it seems to me an artist are not getting a good deal out of it really, because so many artists can't afford to tour now, etc. So it kind of just go through my head sometimes that actually, well, artists are not getting the fees to make it work. Venues are not getting the fees to make it work, and yet in the middle there, still demanding their 80% regardless, are agents, and there's no, and without either of those, the artist or the agent or the venue, there will be no agents. But it doesn't seem, and I might be wrong about that, but I haven't come across an agent yet, with the exception yourself, where and shows really any real, there's some empathy there, don't be wrong, and there's some agents who are definitely understand and etc. But some just, yeah, I don't know if they see it as an issue, perhaps because they know that if they can fill a 400 cap venue, on the tour, then they don't have to worry about the smaller ones. I don't know why, but it feels that way sometimes.
No, I mean, agents need venues of all sizes, but especially the small ones, because that's where, the careers start, and you can't get anywhere without starting a career. But, in support of agents, I would say that, there's an awful lot of work goes on behind the scene that isn't to do with booking a show. That gets those artists to your door to get onto that stage. But but we all have to work together, and we all have to understand it. And I think that there is an increasing awareness that grassroots venues are really struggling, and with the prices that have gone up, with, as you said, the beer sales going down, it's really difficult, and we all have to pull our weight and support each other to get through it and make sure that there is a place where new artists can learn their craft. And
yeah, exactly. If you don't start with us, you don't, where they're going to start. They don't walk onto a big stage without doing the legwork first, do they? So yeah, well, yeah.
Well,
so.
I'd like to finish on a really positive note, because we've gone down a rabbit hole there, and we could all get very depressed about it, but let's not.
No.
I think that fundamentally, somebody who starts a venue like you did, with a massive leap of faith, must be an optimist. So do you have any optimistic sort of predictions about where music might go from here, and how things for venues might sort of, they might find new routes for sort of positive development?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I am generally positive about it. I think mainly because of a lot of the work that's gone on with, like, by the likes of Venue Trust, and also the combined, because so many parts of the country now getting combined authorities, and I've recently joined the West Yorkshire Combined Authority with the Mayor Tracy Braven. Have recently set up a music network, and I've recently been asked to join that. So I think I think there isn't. I think that's definitely positive because there's an understanding of the role and importance that music has, and I think that will manifest itself very soon. In fact, because I've kind of had an inkling that this is coming, that there's something coming from the government in terms of support for the grassroots sector. So I think that that's all positive. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that anybody who's ever run a venue is so skilled at juggling, coming up with all sorts of ideas, and being the most creative in terms of how to make something work, how to, you know, yeah, how to kind of survive and kind of we're a strange bunch, I think. So I have, I have optimism in the sector in that way in terms of the people who are in it, because it's generally run by good people, and what we do in terms of community and being part of a community, we're not unique. That if you said, you could say the same, like say locally, of all the venues that I mentioned, and pretty much in lots of towns and cities, they're the heart of cultural life of it, and it's just that that needs to be recognised. But the optimism is that I think that has been recognised more so in the last year or two, and more optimistically, I think it's actually going to get properly recognised by what's coming down the line from the government.
Yeah, I think that it goes back to the conversation about how culture can reinvigorate towns, and the when all budgets are being cut, it's too easy to cut the budget to culture. But actually, culture is one of the things that actually really generates money, and it builds community and builds out into other industries. And we just have to keep banging on about it and get away from this idea that people think that culture is the easiest thing to cut the money on. So and there's some great work being done on that, and and the what you're doing with young people and young bands, and supporting the local community, all of that is just a fantastic flag for this can really work. This is great.
That's my personal. I say I'm on the network for the Combined Authority, and it's one of the things that I'm going to be seeing. Okay, we're doing it. What else can be done, and go across West Yorkshire, and because I think there's things that can be done relatively if it's got some clout behind it. So I think things will be okay. It's just it's never an easy ride sometimes.
It's never an easy ride, and I've been in the music industry for like 25 years now, and every single year everybody says, "Oh, it's never been as bad as this," and somehow we're all still in it, and we all still love it, and we all still find a way. So but it's down to great people like you doing great work that makes it all happen. So thanks so much, Michael, for telling us about everything that you're doing there, and for sharing it with us on Sound Roots Connect. Appreciate it.
The opportunity.